Hi, everybody. My name is Zach Wartzel, and I am the manager of experiential learning at the Barrow College of Business. We have a great guest with us today, Austin Close from Gartner, for our Recruiters Get Real series. Austin is a senior university recruiter with Gartner. He wants to focus today's session on any questions that could help you all land your dream job.
All right, thanks so much for that. So I'm so excited to be here today and over the next hour or so, really going to be going over some key areas to everything from getting the job, and that could entail interviewing, career fairs, work, trying to work and get a job in the virtual world, resumes, LinkedIn. If anything that goes into getting a job pertains, like ask me the question, I want to help you out. I've been at Gartner now for over 4 years. Started out in sales back in 2017, and was working out of Fort Myers, Florida, in our Fort Myers office. Since then, I have moved into university recruiting, where I've sat in the Houston, Texas location, and now I sit in Austin, Texas. I got promoted last year to a senior university recruiter, where I now oversee pretty much all of Texas and all their recruitment. So that includes University of Houston, Texas A&M's, Texas, all of that. It's been a wonderful 3 years. We've hired, alone from Texas, hired well over 150 students, and had hired a good amount of students from Houston as well. Gartner, to speak a little bit more about Gartner, we are the world's largest research and advisory firm. So really what that means is we help organizations make the best decisions in business, whether that's technology focused, whether it's HR focused, marketing focused, supply chain, doesn't matter. We supply them with research, access to experts, toolkits to help them reach their mission critical priorities. And Gartner is hiring pretty much whatever you're looking to do, whether it's HR, whether it's sales, some marketing roles, IT focused roles, finance focused roles, and we're looking to make a difference. We hire amazing people across multiple different offices in Texas, Florida, Connecticut, I'm really excited to talk with y'all today. So I guess without further ado, let's get started on the questions.
Awesome, thank you. I had a student question come in, and I think it's a good one to start on. What advice do you have on cold messaging recruiters, whether that's either through email or LinkedIn?
Yeah, so I would say that's a really good question. And like a little fun fact about this, my brother, he graduated last year and was having some trouble finding a position. And what I let him know was like what I do as a recruiter is if somebody messages me direct, like a cold message, kind of like that cold call, and message me directly on LinkedIn, if they have the job, what the job is they're trying to apply for, and then they ask like, hey, are you the recruiter that has this position or is there somebody else? I typically will respond to them, and two, get them in the right spot. If it's my job specifically, like if it's for a sales role or a marketing role, and they message me, I'll set up a call with them right then and there. So I think it's really important when you find that job that you want to do at a company, not just Gartner, find a recruiter, let them know like, hey, I found this sales analyst position, open in Houston, Texas. I saw that you're a recruiter at Gartner, wanted to see if this is a role that you worked on. If not, I'd love to get connected with somebody that does. I think I'd be a great fit for this. Something as simple as that, I think can go a long way in getting you in touch with the right people and kind of putting your name and your resume ahead of all the other stacks of all the other people that apply for it.
Cool. And as a follow-up to that, if a student was gonna want to contact maybe the someone in sales or an analyst or something like that instead of the recruiter, is there a difference in that? Would you think that difference would do you think that message would look different? And if it would look different, what do you think it would look like? Or would your advice be probably to go through the recruiter? I mean, it might depend on the company. So what advice do you have there?
I think it really depends, and I think it depends on the company. But I think there's nothing wrong with maybe once you have an interview or once you have the next interview set up with a company, like reaching out to somebody in the role. I think that can go a long way. And when you mention it to the recruiter, when you mention it to the hiring managers, like hey, I spoke to Troy at Houston. He had nothing but great things to say about this role. And I think I would really be a great culture fit because XYZ, from what he told me. And I'm really looking forward to learn more. Like, it shows that you're a go-getter and kind of go out of your way to learn more. I would say typically, like, especially at like bigger organizations, like maybe don't reach out directly to the person in the role, like before you have the interview set up. I think once you get the interview set up and once you get that rolling, doing that extra step, it kind of shows your initiative. It shows that you really want the job and shows that you want to learn and you're learning from people at the company.
And what advice do you have on like what that request could look like? Like what do you think a student should say when they're sending either that message to you as a recruiter or to someone who works at the company?
So I would say keep it simple. Like, and that's always what I say, keep it simple and have like a direct action while you're messaging them. Because I think in today's world and virtual, and you're getting so many emails, so many pings, the last thing you want to do is see an 18-page novel like for a LinkedIn request. So I think what you want to do is keep it very simple, asking, saying, hey, my name is Austin. I saw that you had this position open for a marketing specialist at Gartner in the Texas office. I think I'd be a great fit for the position. I'd love to chat more with you if you are the one working on this role, and if not, I'd love to chat with somebody who is. Thank you so much and have a great day. Like, keep it really simple, and put that in the connection message when you connect with somebody on LinkedIn, so it sends a direct message when they connect with you.
Cool. I think that's really helpful. And you're perfectly okay to say no comment to this, but just so students get a sense, how many LinkedIn messages a day do you get?
It depends. So I would say when I've done events, so like when I, let's say, go to the University of Houston for a career fair, like I'll probably get like 20 to 40 messages or 20 to 40 like connections. Now I would say during a normal week, like during the summer when I'm not doing too many things like this, I would say it's typically like a week. I would say it's, 1 to 5 a week. But nothing too unmanageable. I mean, as a recruiter, we live on LinkedIn. We love LinkedIn. We check it every day. So yeah, I would say it's not unmanageable. After those big career fairs or big presentations, though, when you're speaking to hundreds of people, it can be pretty overwhelming. But it definitely shows initiative. When I see somebody who connected with me on LinkedIn, who asked me for some more information, like, it shows me they're interested in the role, and I really appreciate that. And I can message them right on LinkedIn and say, sounds great. Let's, what's your availability next week? I'd love to chat with you. So it sounds weird, but it kind of makes my job a little bit easier. I don't have to go track you down. You've already tracked me down, and now we can start having that conversation, especially if you've identified that Austin is in charge of these roles at Gartner. Like, once you've identified that, that's like definitely message that recruiter.
Cool, thank you. So I'd say the last question that I've had come in kind of on this topic is, so how would I stand out to someone at a company that I don't necessarily have a contact at? So I'd say there's a difference potentially if you met someone at a career fair and they're contacting you, but if they don't have a contact, how can you stand out in a message to someone you haven't really met yet?
That's a great question. And I think it kind of goes down to, don't overthink anything. Like, don't overthink it. I would say just really, like, if you don't know somebody, like you don't have a contact, like maybe it's the summertime and you're just trying to find like a summer internship or a job for the fall, or just trying to get connected with the right recruiters. Just, for me, what I like is that you've done a little bit of research. So a little bit of research can look a couple different ways. One is you found a job online that you want to do. You say why you'd be a good fit for it. Like, you've already right there looked at our website, found a job, and then talked about why you'd be a great fit for it. Maybe there's not any jobs posted because in the summer, sometimes companies don't post their jobs for new grads and they wait until the fall. And that's completely fine too. What I mentioned there is connect with the recruiter, letting them know, hey, I really like Gartner. I know 2 people who work there, or I've heard that they've hired some amazing people from Houston. It sounds like an amazing company. What I found was this one fact about Gartner that stood out. I'd love to connect with you. So like doing a little bit of research, showing that you've taken that initiative and done that research, whether it's trying to get connected with a company or recruiter or trying to get a job, just showing that in the message, I think can go a long way.
Cool, thank you. I think that's really great information. So I'm going to change topics a little bit. So a student messaged in, can you give some advice on steps to take after an interview? So what did that follow-up look like? What's your advice on thank you notes, thank you messages, stuff like that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I would say it kind of goes back to my one thing where it's keep it simple. Don't write a novel back to these recruiters, the people who you're interviewing with. I would say definitely thank them for their time. So it's probably like a 3-step approach. Thank them for their time. Talk about, after talking with you, it sounds like this is an amazing company, an amazing role that I really think I could bring value to the team or help the team grow or, contribute to your mission, like add in a piece like that. And then the last part is add in, I'm really looking forward to next steps, really looking forward to hearing back from the recruiter, the interview process, or from you. So add in, thank them for their time, talk about about what you learned from them and how excited you are for the role and how you can make an impact. And then ask for next steps or either ask for next steps or tell them you're excited to hear back, from Austin or the other recruiter or the hiring manager, when the decision's been made. So showing excitement, thanking them for their time, and then sprinkling in some stuff that you learned in the interview, I think is really important. It could be like, 5 sentences long, like a quick email, and that goes a long way, shows them that you're interested, shows them that you take initiative.
So a follow-up there. I know for students, one of the hardest things is having interview and then waiting. When is it appropriate for them to reach back out after their interview if they haven't heard anything?
So a good way to combat this, and this is a really strong, like a really good move in the interview process, no matter what job you're going for. And after every conversation you have, at the very end, thank them for their time and then ask them what the next steps look like. When should I expect to hear back? What should I, is it going to be this week? What are the next steps in the interview process? When can I expect, to hear about that? So asking what those next steps are. And if they don't have next steps, it's like the final interview. And it's like you either decide if you get the offer or not. Ask them when I should hear back and when I should expect to hear back from the team. So like most of the time they should know. So I would say typically 85 to 90% of the time, they'll be able to tell you like, oh, so if we're talking on Thursday today, we have our final interview. Then I'll say, I'm going to get back with my team tomorrow. We're going to go over everything. You should find out by Monday afternoon on what our decision is. Sometimes they might not know. And I would say give it about 2 days. And then on that second, on like the PM, so let's say we talked on a Monday and then they didn't have the final steps to say you'll find out sometime this week. Wait Tuesday, and then Wednesday afternoon, I would reach out on that second day in the afternoon and saying, hey, just thinking about our interview, really enjoyed my time, was curious on when next steps could be and when I might find a decision about this position. So I would say if they don't give you next steps, they don't give you a timetable, give it 2 days, and on that second day in the afternoon, reach out.
So I've gotten asked this before, and I would think it'd be good to get your opinion on it. So when you do get a timetable, so like if someone gives you the Monday, okay, you'll heal by Monday afternoon, and it goes to Wednesday morning, and you still haven't heard anything yet, do you think it's appropriate for a student to reach out then?
So if I told you, Zach, if I told you Monday afternoon and you didn't hear back from me on Monday at all, reach out Tuesday morning. Like it shows that you're like up to date. Like if you have a timeline from me that I told you Monday afternoon, I'll tell you. Monday passes, I didn't tell you anything. It's okay to reach out on Tuesday and reference that you said, hey, Austin, hope you're having a great Tuesday. You mentioned on our last conversation that the decision would be made on Monday afternoon. Just wanted to follow up and see if there's any news on or anything else that I can do. Like, I think that's okay if they give you a timetable and they go past the timetable. Like, you can reach out that next morning.
Perfect. Yeah, I think that's really good to hear, and it's good advice. I know sometimes students fear that they might be like too pushy or annoying if they send that email.
So I wouldn't here's something else that kind of like take a deeper dive, and every company is different. Like, don't take this as like this is the law, but usually like you're working with the recruiter. A lot of times you're working with the recruiter, and your final interview might not be with that recruiter, it might be with the hiring manager, or it might be somebody else who's like their job isn't to deal with like to work with the candidates, give them offers and all that. That's the recruiter's job. And honestly, like the recruiter's ultimate goal is to get you a position. Like, that's how he or she is doing their job correctly. So like, you just showing you want a role, like you showing that you want a position, like, I wouldn't worry too much about if you're coming off annoying. Like, just, I would say like that's not really like it doesn't really bother me because I know that you want the role. I want you to get the role as the recruiter. But I would say don't worry too much about that. Ask them if you have any questions. Like, if there's any questions that pop up, definitely let them know. Or if there's concerns, anything at all, like, that's the recruiter's job, is to help you get through that interview process and ultimately get a full-time job or an internship.
Cool, thank you. I think that's a really good advice and good insight. So a question that I think is really important, because I know a lot of students are starting to see this now, is what advice do you have for hire review or kind of those virtual recorded interviews? What's a recruiter looking like when they're watching those videos of a recorded interview?
That's a good question. And so I don't have like direct experience with this. I know that's some companies do the practice, or they have the practice where you kind of interview, you like do a video recording and send it off to them. I do have a lot of experience though in watching recordings of like pitches, sales competitions, things like that. What I would say is they're looking, and this kind of goes with everything, they're looking dress professional. Like, even if the company only wears like polo shirts or t-shirts or whatever, like it's always better to overdress than underdress, in my opinion. So dress professional. I would say really practice your answers on what you're gonna talk about. Practice those ahead of time. Have a clear, concise message. So you definitely want to have good information in what you're saying, but you never want to be somebody who talks too much or somebody who over exaggerates or over speaks. It's always good to have a clear, concise message. And I would say those are like probably the big things that we're looking for in those recordings. I just typically, I haven't dealt too much with that before.
Cool. I mean, I think that's really good insight though, because I know it's something that there are a lot of companies that are kind of moving in that direction where that's a thing that students are going to be dealing with. With with that though, another question that I think I get a whole lot is, can you talk a little bit about phone interviews? Is that something? So can you, in the Gartner interview process, do you do phone interviews as your first round?
Yeah, phone
Okay,
interview is
cool.
a big player for sure.
Yeah.
And a lot of companies.
Perfect. Can you talk a little bit about phone interviews? Because I know it's something that some students have some kind of apprehension about because it is a little bit of a less personal experience sometimes on the interviewee end.
It is. I can totally see that. And I completely understand with that. But what I would say is just treat it as you would a video interview, except you can wear, sweats and a hoodie or slippers because you'll be over phone. So, but what I mean by treat it as a video interview is be in a quiet location. You make sure you're not, driving, going to the store. I cannot tell you how many times I've had interviews where they're either like doing something in the background, like getting in and out of their car. Like, make sure you're in a quiet location, even if it's just a phone interview. And make sure you're somewhere you can take notes, you can listen, you can ask great questions. That's kind of like that. That's what I would say for that, is like, don't think, oh, it's over the phone, it's okay if I do it at this, I'll be going to I got a doctor's appointment, I'll do it on my way to the doctor's appointment. Like, I would definitely not, definitely don't do that. Make sure you're in a quiet location, door closed, and have somewhere you can take notes and really listen and be a part of the interview.
Cool, thank you. I think that's super good advice. A question that just came in, I think it's an interesting one. What advice or insight do you have on if you want a specific role, but maybe another role is open in that company? Are you a proponent of getting your foot in the door with another role, or is it really something you want to focus on the role you actually want?
That is a great question. And I think every company is different. So I don't want to give like a blanket statement for this, because some companies, I know they hire, like they just hire good students and then they like put them through like a trainee program where they learn all aspects of the business. Whereas some other companies, they only hire like marketing or finance. And like that's what they're hiring, that's what they're hiring you for. And they want you to be in that role, that position. And I think a good way to talk about this with a recruiter is definitely talk about your excitement for the role, talk about why you're excited for the role that you're applying for and you're going for, but ask what internal growth looks like. Ask them like, do people in this, let's use sales for example, do people in this sales position always stay in sales, or have you seen people, move within the company, go into marketing, go into finance? Like, what does that look like at Gartner, at Google, at Dell, at Houston? Like, asking those questions and knowing that on the front end is really important. I would typically, though, when you're applying for like a certain job, like I mentioned, in marketing, finance, sales, IT, they're hiring you to do that job and grow within that space. So definitely make sure that moving internally is something you can do, and moving internally is something that's welcomed in the company. I would definitely ask that on the front end, maybe even probably on like the first interview. At the end, like when you have questions, that's a great question to ask if you're interested in doing that and interested in moving into different verticals within a company.
Cool, thank you. I think that's a really good insight for that. One of the questions I just got asked, and I think it would be good to get your insight on it, was do ancillary profiles, something like a GitHub or something like that, help people or people getting recruited stand out? And do recruiters have time to even look at ancillary profiles or portfolios or stuff like that?
So in my role, I don't, but I have a great story. So we're hiring right now for our team at Gartner, for our university recruitment team. And one of the stories that she was telling was a time where she had a really tough role to fill. They had to have this certain technology experience and working on these technology experiences. And what she did was actually go through those additional documents that students either sent, like you mentioned, the GitHubs or websites or research papers that they did. And she was looking if the company or if that candidate had that experience and worked on that experience through those additional documents that might not be on a resume or might not be on a LinkedIn profile. So my whole thing is like, it kind of like overdress. It's better to overdress. I think it's better to provide more information than less information. So if you have that already made and that's a career field, like especially in IT, marketing, maybe even finance, if that's something that you have readily available, like definitely use that in your application process.
Cool, thank you. That's really helpful, and I agree. I think any of that stuff that you can, the more good information that you can provide, the better.
And speaking on it, like what am I like? It's not a big deal for me to like click on X. I don't need your GitHub. I don't need that. Like I just want your resume. Like it's not a big deal if you send too much information. Like it's no pressure off me or it's no skin off my back just to click. I don't need that. Just let me see your resume. So yeah. Definitely sending more information is better if you have it. And if the job or like if it makes sense for the job.
Yeah. So a follow up I have there, and again, it could be a no comment if you want. But do you read cover letters? Is it something that you think is important? When I talk to students, I tell them some recruiters do, some recruiters don't. But it's never going to hurt you to put a good tailored cover letter in with your application.
So I do if they send it to me directly. So like if somebody had my email, because a lot of times when I give presentations or do give out my business card, if they send me over a cover letter like directly to my email, I will 100% read that, look it over, and then look over the resume. If they're applying like directly online and I just get that I get their profile sent to me, I typically just look at the resume. So if you're making it personal, and you're sending it directly to the recruiter, like if you have my email address, like austin.kloss@gartner.com, then please, if you send me over a cover letter, I'll read that because it's personalized. You send it over to me. Some companies I know require a cover letter to send. So if that's the case, definitely make sure you make it customized for that position.
Cool, thank you. So we talked a little bit about like LinkedIn messaging and networking with LinkedIn, but how early do you think students should create a LinkedIn profile, and start building that?
High school, like the second, if you can, even in high school, I would say the as fast as you can. By freshman year, you should have a LinkedIn. It's very important. Putting on there what you're interested in, why you're interested in doing it, like what, if you don't have experience, like even just putting on like projects you've worked on or things like that can go a long way. Like for me, I look, recruiters can look for keywords. So if you put on there, interested in a, entry-level sales job with this summer for an internship, like I would be able to see that when I put in the keyword sales, I could see that on your LinkedIn that you're interested in a sales level role, even though you might not have any experience in that. And I know right away, this person's somebody I can reach out to because they're interested in what I'm hiring for. So even if you lack experience, putting on there what you're interested in, where you go to school, putting on your grad date is also important because a lot of positions for internships, they only hire certain grad dates. And then for full-time roles, they only look for like May 22 grads. Like that's what they're looking for. So if you put on your grad dates, you'll come up in their searches. If you don't have a grad date on there, you're never going to come up. So I'd say the most important things is putting what you're looking for on your profile and then putting on your grad date and your university. Like if you just have that on there, like that's a good starting place. But definitely have a LinkedIn for sure. Second thing to that is definitely make sure you have a professional picture. And what I mean by that is it doesn't even take it professionally by a photographer, anything crazy like that. All you have to do is you can just have somebody take a picture of you in a suit, in business professional outfits, right against a wall, a black wall, a white wall, it doesn't matter, and have somebody just take a picture of you from your head up and then post that to LinkedIn. It makes it more personal. It makes it more feel like you're talking to a human rather than you're just talking to, their little non-picture. Like you don't even know what they look like. You don't know who they are. Like it just brings a personal element to LinkedIn, which I really enjoy. And it kind of, I say there's no reason not to have a picture on there.
Cool, thank you. I think that's super good advice. So a question that I just got was, can you talk about your view on receiving like handwritten mail? So maybe like a handwritten thank you note. And also in that kind of same sense, what's your view on students having like their own business cards to give out to recruiters at career fairs and networking events?
I think the business card is really cool. I think it's a personal touch. I definitely think give them a resume too and apply online, but I think it's just one more added element to your profile, to why they should hire you, one more added element to maybe they can reach out to you and remember you by. Business cards are great if you have them. Like I wouldn't spend a ton of money on them, but if you can get them, if they're part of an organization, if they're part of something like that, like that's totally fine. I definitely think you should use those. And it's just like I said, it's like one more added element to your profile, a reason they should hire you. The handwritten letters, I would say, is fine too, but I would say you typically, if you can get their business address, like I wouldn't ask recruiters or hiring managers for their personal address. sometimes that can just come off the wrong way. But if they have on their business card where their building is located, I think there's nothing wrong with sending over a personalized thank you letter. Like, it just might be the one thing where they're like, deciding between Troy and Zach, like they're both so great. We only have one spot available. Like, they hit all the same boxes. And then that day I get a personalized letter from Zach and saying how great, the experience was, and thank you so much. I'm like, you know what? Like, he really wants this job. I think it's something that it's like a little nice touch that can go a long way. But don't, definitely, I would not ask for personal addresses of recruiters.
I think that is really good advice. I think 100% true. I can say it. That comes across as pretty creepy. Yeah, it was not something I would recommend doing either from a career counseling perspective. So a follow-up on that, and it may not be, obviously, hopefully it's not getting asked too many times your personal address, but is there any pet peeves or deal breakers with applicants that you have or have seen, or that you maybe even just other colleagues that you know in recruiting have seen? Like, what is a total, like, full stop?
So I would say here is, and like, I don't want to discourage anybody from being persistent, because I definitely don't want to do that, because I think being persistent shows that you care. But I think once you've sent an email and once you've called and left a voicemail, like, let it go for a couple days. Let it be, let them make their decision. Sometimes it's out of the recruiter's hand. I would say once you've done those two things, let it sit for at least 3 or 4 days, because they've got, whether they're on PTO or they're on their phone or they're on their computer, you sent it to their phone, left a voicemail, and you've sent over an email. Once you've done that, I would say let it go for at least 3 days, and let them reach back out to you. I'd say that can kind of get, multiple calls in a day, multiple emails. Now, if there's something prevalent, like, hey, I'm really excited about Gartner, let me know what, looking forward to hearing about the offer. And then something pops up where you get another offer from another company, that might be okay to send them over another email on top of that one saying, hey, I don't want to be pushy or anything, but I actually just received another offer today. My timeline is by end of week. If there's any way you can let me know by end of week, that'd be amazing. Like, I think that's okay when you have more information to share. But if it's just like, when is my next interview? When is my next interview? When is my next interview? Like, sometimes that's out of the recruiter's hand. Sometimes it's out of even the hiring manager's hand. It goes up to the business. So I would say one phone call and a voicemail and one email, and then let it be for a couple of days.
Cool, thanks. I think that's really good advice, because I know that's a situation sometimes students get into when they really want an answer, but sometimes asking too many times could push them towards an answer they're not going to want to get.
And I wouldn't worry about that. Like, I wouldn't worry about like you being so annoying to the recruiter because you called him 5 times in a day that now he's not going to hire you, like, or he or she's not going to hire you. But just don't call somebody 5 times in a day. Like, just like, I would say one call, one email, you're good to go. Unless, like I said, you have more information to share that's prevalent to your job, prevalent to you accepting a job.
Cool, thank you. Can you give some advice on how to deal with rejections, or if you didn't get a job? I just want to add a piece of that. I know sometimes recruiters aren't able to give feedback, but do you think it's always a good thing to ask?
100%, 100% ask, because you might get turned down in a job and like you did everything right, because a lot of times recruiters just send a blanketed decline email to you, and you don't really even know what happened. And there's so many scenarios that can happen with this. One is sometimes they ended up filling it up before you could like get through the process, and like nothing to do with you, they just ended up filling the position. So asking for feedback and asking for that could tell you like, hey, we actually, we really liked you. We think you could be a good fit in the future, but right now we ended up filling up the position with somebody else, which is, that's pretty frustrating to hear, but it's definitely something to know that in the future, you can definitely apply there again. And asking them, is this somewhere I can apply in the future? Like, can I keep in contact with you if that position's open? So right there, you've gotten a new open dialogue with that recruiter for that company in the future. Now, let's say the interview, you just didn't do well in the final round or didn't do well in an interview. Asking for feedback can help you grow. Because I know for me, one of the positions I applied for way back in the day, back before I was with Gartner, was the feedback I got. I made it all the way to the final round, and the feedback I got was, you seemed like I seemed like somebody who thought they knew everything and wouldn't want feedback and coaching. And I took that to, I was like, hey, thanks for the feedback. I really appreciate that. And now in my interviews, I definitely make it a point to show that I'm somebody who can be coached, that somebody who wants to learn, because I came across as somebody who didn't show that before. So I think there's two ways to look at it. One is you can learn from mistakes you made in the interview, and you can change that in your next interviews with other companies. The second is sometimes it just doesn't work out timing, and they still love you as a candidate. They just don't have anything for you right now. So asking to stay in contact with the recruiters is always great as well. And then finally, maybe it was just one little thing, like, hey, you just are lacking some of that experience. Like they really loved you as a culture fit. They loved you as somebody to be a part of the team, but right now we're looking for somebody to kind of hit the ground running. You lack some of that, industry experience or whatever it is. And asking, like, letting them know, like, hey, if I ended up getting that industry experience or got this, this other skill, would I be open to, would you be open to talking to me again? And like even getting that too. So I've hired people from Houston that I talked with in the fall semester. They weren't a great fit. They just lacked some of that experience, that knowledge, that industry experience. And then in the spring semester, they had done an internship. They had gotten more experience, taken some more classes, and we ended up hiring them. So definitely ask for feedback, ask for what you can work on, and ask if, down the line, is it okay if we stay connected? Because I think I've hired so many students before that it wasn't quite right the first time they applied, but the second time we got them that job.
Cool, thank you. To follow up on something you said, one thing that we hear as career counselors a lot is, how can I still impress a recruiter if I don't have that much of that job or kind of industry experience, as you were talking about? So if I have a resume that doesn't have a lot of experience on it right now, what are some things that I could do to maybe still have a good impression on a recruiter?
So I would say relate what you can to, like, because a lot of times you've done a lot of the work that they're looking for in classes, in group projects, in working with, in a lot of classes, they do like things with outside businesses, like mock role plays, mock things like that. Talk about those experiences and how they relate to the job. Like that's really what they're looking for in these interviews, is what you have done and how you can relate that to the job. And I would even say too, it's okay to be, human about it. It's okay to be humble about it and say, Austin, I actually don't have, XYZ experience, but the experience I had that might relate to this is this project I did in class. Let me walk you through it and why I think the experience here really relates to this job. So being able to do that, I think it really shows the recruiter that, like, you can think outside the box and you have those experiences that they might not just read from your resume.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the transferable skills piece is really important. What would maybe be some ways that students can talk about those? Um, so, like, is it good to have, like, think up maybe specific examples ahead of time that they want to talk through to show that they have some of those skills?
Absolutely. So for me, if I'm somebody who's hiring for sales, let's use that for an example, because that's what I typically hire for. I'd be like, looking at the resume, they don't have any sales experience. But like, if you're the candidate, you can come prepared to talk about whether it be sales classes, things you learned in there, mock role plays you've done, what you learned and how you grew from those experiences, doing a retail job, doing a restaurant job, and ways that you had to work with clients, work with customers, be able to work in a challenging situation, like come prepared with those answers and with those stories ready to go, and then tailor them to the questions they ask you.
Cool. Thank you. I think that that's really helpful. So something that's still going to be prevalent and relevant for our students in the fall is online or virtual career fairs. Can you talk about ways that you could potentially impress a recruiter at a virtual career fair, and maybe what the differences between in-person and virtual might be, if there's a difference in the kind of how you should prepare for those?
So I don't think there's obviously, other than the fact of like, you know, mapping out where you should go, in a in-person career fair, like in mapping out, okay, I want to hit these 8 companies. It looks like 5 companies are in the back room and 3 are in the front room. Like, other than that, there's not a lot of difference in how you should prepare. What I would say is in virtual, one thing that, and I don't know if this bothers everybody, but it bothers me, is if you have a ceiling fan like right in your line of sight of your camera and it's just going, like, that can be a little distracting sometimes. I would say be in a nice quiet location with like a nice little background with nothing too crazy going on, just nothing distracting. Like, if you're in a room and if you're like live in a dorm and you only have one little room, take down your posters. That might be distracting. And so you can put it right back up after. Definitely, like I said before, you want to overdress, look professional. You want to do your research on the company beforehand, why you'd be a good fit. You want to, and a big thing that I always talk about is not just saying like, hey, Zach, what's Houston like? Like, what is it like working for Houston? Like, think of something like, introduce yourself and be like, hi, Zach, my name is Austin. I am a junior at the University of Houston. I am studying marketing with a professional sales, and I'm involved in the professional sales program. Really looking forward to learning more about, the business development role at Gartner. What more can you tell me about it? Or what more I'd love to learn more about it. Like, have a clear objective, introduce yourself, give your grad date, give the job that you're looking for, and then ask for more information about it, or how can I stand out? How can I apply for this role? That's what these recruiters are looking for, a quick introduction and why you're there. Not just, hey, what's Gartner like? Like, that's, you can ask that later down the line once you kind of got a dialogue going, like, what's the culture like? How's your experience been there so far? But maybe you don't know the company, and that's totally fine. And I would just even say, because a lot of times, especially at career fairs, I remember when I was there, I didn't know like half the companies there. And that's totally fine, because you might find the company you love, but have that introduction ready to go. Hi, my name is Austin. I'm a junior here at the University of Houston. I'm a marketing major, looking for, a career in sales, a career in marketing, a career in finance, whatever that is. I've actually never heard of Gartner before, but I'd love to learn more and see if that could be a good fit. Like, having that there is great, because you're not going to be able to research. Because I know Houston has, Zach, how many companies do y'all have at the career fairs?
Over 100, sometimes
Okay.
sometimes over 150.
So we're not, and I'm not telling you to do research on 150 companies. Definitely do research on the 10 that you really want to work for. But on the other 100, like, it's okay to go up, have a great introduction, say, I'm looking up your company now. It looks like you do this and this, but I'd love to learn more and see if there's a position that I could be a good fit for. Like, just be excited. Let them know why you're there. Give them your grad date, your major, what you're looking for, and that's really going to make a great first impression.
Yeah, and I think you sort of said a couple of pieces, but one thing you said was, you even said, I could see you've done that, you all do this. I would say it's 2021. You have a computer in your pocket, so if you see a company you want to go to, you can go around the corner, throw them into Google, and do a little bit of research there too. There's I think there's a balance, between being excited but also coming across as unknowledgeable about the company that you're talking about.
Ab-
So
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
I think if you're honest about it,
yeah.
you might just say like, and even just let them know like, hey, I've actually never heard of Gartner before today. I saw you talking to a lot of students. I actually did pulled it up, did a little research on it. Looks like you have a lot of great things going on. I'd love to learn more about it. Like just showing them that like, hey,
Yeah.
I tried to do a little research, but I really don't know a lot. I love to learn more about it. Like just like being honest with them is like totally fine, rather than going up to me at their career fair and saying, who is Gartner? What do y'all do? Like, it's like, okay, well, who are you and what do you want? Like, I think you show them that you're interested, you're excited. That's, I think, what's most important, and that like you've tried, like, it looks like you guys are a research company. Was trying to do a little research before I talked to you. Would love to learn more about it from you. Like, that is really what I'm looking for as a recruiter. And a lot of times too, and this doesn't happen virtually, but a lot of times, companies will just, they might be slow. It might be like towards the end of the career fair and you're kind of walking around, and they'll pull you over, say, hey, why don't you come over here? What are you looking for? Like, and, just being honest and like, hey, I've never heard of this company, but I'd love to learn more. My name is Austin. I do this, this, and this. So like, it's okay if you don't know every single detail about the company or what they do. It's just being honest and being excited. And that's really what they're looking for.
Yeah, I think that's super good advice. I'm really really happy that you shared that. And when you're saying the fan going is your thing, my thing as a career counselor and as a recruiter, I'm sure that's done a bunch of Zoom interviews. You can share this as well. People, change your fire alarm batteries.
Yes. Yes.
The
100%. Change your fire alarm batteries. And here's the thing too. Here's the thing. Like, let's just like put it on the table. We're all human. We all have things going on in our house. If your dog is barking, if the baby wakes up, it's okay to be like, you know what? Hey, sorry, I need to take care of this. Or if it's on an interview, if it's something like that, like it's okay to just be like, I'm so sorry. Looks like my dog saw somebody outside. She'll quiet down in a second. Like, just, it's okay, but try to handle as much as you can beforehand. Changing the battery on your fire alarm, maybe putting your dog in a room where he or she isn't going to bark. Just things like that. Maybe if your house is going to be, you've got roommates and they're going to be doing things like maybe going to the library and doing this. So I think there's things you can take pre-measure, like to pre-prepare for a career fair virtually, but things are going to happen and it's okay. Like, don't think because you spilled your water or your roommate walked in and he didn't know you were on an interview, like, that's fine. It's okay. Like, just apologize and move on. Like, it happens to everybody.
Cool, thank you. Yeah, and I think that's super good advice. So I had a question that came in, and again, if you want to comment this one, you can, or talking more generalities, you can. But I got asked, are you able to share your best and your worst candidate hiring experience?
I mean, I think the best is it's everything I've talked about today. The best is they know the company, or they've done their research. They know why they want to work at Gartner. They've looked at the role. They've related their skills to the role. They were professional. They were concise. They had great communication, good prepared stories, followed up on time, showed their interest in the role, and asked, what the next steps were. Ultimately, they prepared, they practiced, they asked for more help, asked for coaching and feedback. They get the role. Like, if you do those things, like, you're going to put yourself in a really good spot. Worst candidate experience. I mean, I would say some things. So here's some things not to do. So when you have to, maybe you're on an hour-long interview, and companies do this all the time. You might have like a panel interview, and things are happening. It takes maybe 3 hours in a day, and like, you have to maybe use the restroom or go get a glass of water. Maybe somebody knocked on your door and you have to be like, hey, I need to see what that is real quick. 1 second. Like, put yourself on mute and turn off the camera before you get up. Like, nothing is weirder than like you going, standing up, you can hear everything going on. You're talking to somebody at the door. Like, just put yourself off the camera, take yourself off, put yourself on mute, go handle it, and then come right back. Like that is pretty important. Um, Definitely, like if you have an interview with the company, like definitely know who the company is, or at least try. Like at least say, because sometimes people will interview. I might talk to Troy. I met Troy at a career fair today, and I set up an interview with him tomorrow. He might not have time to do in-depth research on the company and look up the jobs we have, but I would hope Troy at least Googled who Gartner is and like what we do. And it's okay for Troy to say, hey, I met you yesterday, Austin. What I found out about Gartner was this and this. I'd love to learn more. So like at least just Google the company before you have an interview with the recruiter. Those are like two things that stick out, are like etiquette in the video interview and then just reviewing the company before you talk to somebody. Those are pretty important, and those can like, usually I'm like, hey, so why do you want to work at Gartner? And somebody's like, oh, I don't know who Gartner is. I don't really know. I just want a job. Like that doesn't look good. Trying to think of some other like weird scenarios.
I can throw one out there, and I think it might be good. It's sort of the in-person piece of your like turn off your video and mute yourself. You're interviewing the entire time you walk into the building versus the entire time that you leave. Or so it's important to like know that when you're in the bathroom, wherever someone starts trying to talk to you, don't like, all these people potentially are people who are going to have a decision and if they're going to get hired. There's the receptionist at the front. All those all those people are important, and that if you say or do something inappropriate, it's going to get back to whoever is interviewing you.
And I would say, like, okay, that's just, I think, being like a good human is like, do something inappropriate,
Yeah.
don't be mean to people.
Yeah.
But I think kind of going off of that, like being overly nice, being overly like, hey,
for sure.
Hey, my name is Austin. Hey, I haven't seen you around here before. Who are you? Oh, I'm Austin. I'm actually, I'm interviewing for a job today. Really excited to be a part of the marketing team here. What was your name? Was Troy? It's good to meet you. Hope to learn a lot more about the company, and maybe we'll be coworkers. Who knows? Like just being excited and showing them, like, I think that can go a long way too. And then who knows? Like Troy might go walk in, like after you're done interviewing, you might go walk in and say, I like that Austin guy. He seemed really excited about this role. And who knows what could happen. So it's always good just to be overly excited, overly curious when you're talking to people at the company who maybe not be interviewing you.
I think that's super good advice. So we're getting close to the end of our hour. Before I ask my final question, I had a couple questions come in about how students could reach out to you with inquiries about Gartner.
Yeah, so just shoot me over a ping on LinkedIn. Connect with me. Austin Kloss is super easy, and I can I'll direct you in the right direction if I can. Or if you just want to connect with me, great. That'd be awesome too.
Perfect. And Austin, thank you so much for joining us. As my ending question on all of these webinars, I always ask, just what is your one biggest piece of advice that you can give for students that are recruiting, whether for jobs or internships in the near future?
That's good. That's a good one. There's so much I could say. I think you mentioned something. Should students have a LinkedIn? Make a LinkedIn right now if you don't have one. That's like the obvious thing. But I think what's really important is do research. Like find out where you want to work. Find out, maybe look at some companies that have hired some of your friends or people that go to your university. Like see why this company would be a good fit for you. See the growth of these companies. Like look at people from LinkedIn, and if they've grown, if they've moved on, and really take this seriously. Like take it as seriously as you would a final. Like prepare for these interviews. Really make a list of companies that you want to work for. At least for me, like I didn't start my when I was in college, I didn't start really interviewing or looking at companies to look for full time until it was like my last semester of senior year. And I went to the final career fair. So like start early, start, get internships, get experience. The great things about internships are there's two. One is you might find a company you love, a great culture, and then they hire you full time and it works out great. Like you've got a full-time job when you graduate. Another is you might go to a company or an industry or a job that you thought you wanted to do and you ended up like not liking it, and now you know that going forward, so you can find a full-time position different than that you did. So I would say make a LinkedIn, do your research throughout the whole process of interviewing and getting a job, and then get internships as early as you can. Professional experience is huge.
Well, Austin, thank you so much for spending the last hour with us. I think you provided amazing advice for our students. We are continuing our Recruiters at Rails series next week with Renee from HPE. So we have another great guest to provide really awesome information. So again, thank you so much, everyone, for coming. And thank you, Austin, for providing such great information. And hope everyone has a great rest of the day.
Take care, y'all. Have a great summer. I'm looking forward to seeing y'all virtually or in person in the fall.